As we have already discussed regarding the substance of national water laws, and today we will discuss about key issues and changing incentives through regulation under water governance and policy. The key issues involved are mainly the deficiency in the existing legal framework, absence of the uniform water law. Constitutionally, water is a state subject. In the absence of uniform law and policy, water management in India remains by and large uncoordinated. Since water is a state subject as per our the constitution, so in the absence of a uniform law and policy, water management in India is largely remains uncoordinated. Various states have varied legal positions on water ownership. So different states have adopted their own strategies for legal positions. Water is a natural heritage to be protected and not a commercial property for absolute private use and exploitation. So water cannot be treated as a commercial property with absolute private use and exploitation. It is to be treated as a natural heritage and it is to be protected. It has to be governed by different set of laws which meet the requirement of the contemporary society. So we need different set of laws to meet the requirements of today's society. India is a federation of states. Therefore, to lay down uniform law and policy is essential to identify and incorporate those principles which are common and applicable to all the states. Since India is a federation of states, we need to have a common legal framework which is applicable to all the states. Other issues involved are laws concerning water have grown in a piecemeal and ad hoc manner without a clearly articulated conceptual basis in respect of fundamental as the nature and content of water. So today we have the laws concerning water are based on a piecemeal and ad hoc manner and they do not have a conceptual basis in respect that water is a fundamental right and based on the nature and the content of the water. Governments, both central and state, claim the right of eminent domain over water and absolute right. So both the government and central, both the central government as well as the state governments claim the rights over the domain of the water. Where and how it is to be developed and how it is to be managed and to make and change entitlements and allocation is at their discretion. So the the powers to make the changes in the entitlements, allocation, etc. remain with the central government as well as state government because central government deals with the allocation of the water. The danger is increased manifold where all the relevant functions, development and management, implementing regulatory functions, redressal of grievances, and conflict resolution are taken by the executive arm of the government. So there is also one more danger that the development and management, implementation, redressal of the government's conflict resolution are rest with the executive wing of the government. The regulatory functions regarding development and management of the resource should be vested with the bodies independent of the executive agencies. So there is a need that the regulatory functions should rest with independent bodies rather than executive agencies for the purpose of water resource development and management. Another lacuna is the lack of clearly defined criteria for determining the entitlements of different claimants to the common pool resource in a river basin. A river basin is the common pool of water resource, but there is no clearly defined criteria for the determining the rights of different claimants. That means the water has got different uses and there are number of claimants for this resource and we don't have the well defined criteria for determining their rights. Central legislation does not specify the basis for deciding the entitlement of the riparian states. If a river flows in different states in different states in a particular basin, then the central legislation does not have a specified basis for deciding the rights of the riparian states. None of the state governments have laws or executive notifications specifying the basis of water allocation between different segments of basins falling within their territories. So, if I got the segments or sub segments of a in a particular basin, like we have Krishna basin in our district, and we have got the sub basins as Malaprabha and Ghataprabha. So, in such cases, state governments do not have proper laws or executive notification which specify the basis for water allocation between these different segments. States are largely free to change the allocation of water between and within a particular system and between uses at their discretion without observing any consistent application of clearly defined principles and procedures laid down by law. So the states have at their discretion and they are free to change the allocation of water between and within a particular system. So in a basin or in the sub basin, the state governments are free to change the allocation and also to change the allocation between different uses of the water like irrigation, water supply, power generation, etc. at their discretion, and they and they do not have a clearly defined principle and procedures laid down for this purpose. Changing incentives, changing incentives through regulation. There are clear signs of the overexploitation of available freshwater resources and the resultant inability to meet basic human and ecosystem needs. So already there are clear signs that we are overexploiting the freshwater resources, and there is then and we have an inability to meet basic human and ecosystem needs. Groundwater withdrawals have tripled over the past 50 years, with groundwater extraction exceeding natural recharge in some areas, causing widespread depletion and declining groundwater levels. So we have already withdrawn the groundwater almost, and the withdrawal has been tripled over last 50 years, and the extraction is exceeding the natural recharge in some areas. So this has led to the widespread depletion of the groundwater levels. At the same time, the world's water quality is becoming increasingly degraded, with water pollution exacerbating the challenges posed by the water scarcity. So also we are polluting the water quality, and this has increased. The degradation has been increased due to the pollution of water, and we have a greater challenge of the pollution rather than the threat posed by the water scarcity. Pressure on water resources intensifying in response to challenges such as economic and pollution growth, and in turn is having major impacts on our social, economic, and environmental well-being. So there is an increasing pressure in the response to challenges such as economic and population growth, and in turn they are having their impacts on the social, economic, and environmental well-being, that is on the quality of life. With the traditional approaches to managing water having proven insufficient to address these challenges, new approaches and policies are needed. So, with the traditional approach to the water management, and since we are not able to address the challenges which are we are facing, so there is a need for new approaches and policies. Policymakers and water managers are showing increasing interest in incentive-based instruments to reduce pressure on water resources. So the policymakers and the managers are thinking of intensive-based instruments to reduce the pressure on the water resource. Water trading. Water trading refers to the temporary or permanent transfer of the right to use water in exchange for some form of compensation. So means trading means we are selling water or buying the water. So water trading refers to a temporary or permanent transfer of the right to use water in exchange of some form of compensation. So you can exchange your water right to others in exchange of some form of the compensation given by them. So water trading occurs within sectors from agriculture to agriculture and urban to urban, across sectors and less frequently from either of these to the environment. So the water trading can be between the individual sectors, that means from in agriculture to agriculture, or in urban supply to urban supply, or sometimes it may be across the sectors but less frequently from either of these to the environment. So sometimes or rarely it can be used for the environmental exchange also. So water trading exists to varying degrees in countries around the world, although the most active water trading markets are in Australia and the Western United States. So already the water trading is in practice in Australia and Western United States, but it is being seen an alternative in varying degrees in different countries. In Australia's Murray-Darling Basin, the federal government invested more than 3 billion to purchase water for the environment, protecting ecological resources and directly addressing one of the major challenges to water trading. So in Australia, the federal government itself has invested more than 3 billions to purchase water for the environmental purpose. This has facilitated trading in basin and reduced the transaction cost by shifting them to the national taxpayers. Water trading has been used as a mechanism to obtain water for ecological purposes, to augment stream flow, and to address water quality concerns in the threatened reaches. So, trading has been used as a mechanism for the ecological purposes. So, it is buying water for the ecological purpose, and the need of that is for the purposes of to augment stream flows and to address water quality concerns in the threatened reaches. The benefits of voluntary incentive based water acquisition includes ease of transactions and greater community support, especially related to regulatory takings, though in most areas such activity still represents a tiny fraction of the total water use in any given area. So the water trading compared to the quantity of water we are using is relatively small, or it is a fraction of that. And the benefits of voluntary incentive based water acquisition. So if the water acquisitions or the water trading, incentive based water trading occurs voluntarily with the ease of transaction and greater community support, especially related to the regulatory takings. Successful water trading requires secure and flexible water rights that recognize and protect users and others from externalities. So, successful water trading depends on the secure and flexible water rights of that particular states that recognizes and protects the users and others from the externalities or some the events which are outside our control. Payment for ecosystem services. Payment for ecosystem services is an incentive based instrument that seeks to monetize the external non market values of environmental services, such as removal of pollutants and regulation of precipitation events, that can then be used as financial incentives for local actors to provide such services. See, we have seen that the water trading is between done for our personal interest, or sometimes we may sell or buy the water for the purposes of agriculture or industry. So that is the water trading. But the services provided for ecosystem, such as environmental services like removal of the pollutants or regulation of precipitation events, that means you have to look after the characteristics of the catchment to have the precipitation or a good surface yield, then or we can improve the recharge conditions of the existing catchment, then such activities cannot be measured in terms of monetization, or they are having the values other than the monetary methods. But if we make some incentive based instruments as financial incentives for local actors to provide such services, in practical terms, they involve a series of payments to a land or resource manager in exchange for a guaranteed flow of environmental services. So, in practical terms, it means that some payments are to be made to a land or resource manager in exchange for a guaranteed environmental services. Payment are made to the environmental service provider by the beneficiary of those services. Example, an individual, a community, a company, or a government. So the beneficiaries of the environmental services may be an individual, rarely, but it is by large a community, a company, or a government. So these people have to pay for the environmental services. In essence, it is based on a beneficiary pays principles as opposed to polluter pays principle. Payments for ecosystem services that focus on watershed services, commonly referred to as payments for watershed services, can take variety of forms. So when the payments are made for ecosystem based on a water service as the payment for watershed services. They may be intended to prevent the degradation of a watershed or to restore a previously degraded one. The service may be in terms of to prevent the degradation of a watershed, or it can be to restore a already degraded one. They may be small, local schemes covering several hundred hectares, or it can be large on national basis or national schemes covering millions of hectares. Programs may be financed directly by the beneficiary or by third party acting on behalf of the beneficiary. So these programs can be financed directly by the beneficiaries or a third party which acts for the beneficiaries. Example, governments or institutions, or some combination thereof. They may involve cash or in-kind payments to be paid all at once or periodically. So the mode of payment can be done at a depending on the circumstance. It may be periodically or that can be paid at a time, and it can be paid in terms of cash or in kind payments means in exchange of some commodity. The largest payment for watershed programs are in China. China's sloping land conservation program, piloted in 1999 and fully implemented in 2002, requires farmers to set aside erosion prone farmland within critical areas of the watershed of the Yangtze and Yellow rivers, the two largest rivers in China. So a program was taken up for payment of watershed programs in China in the basin of or in the watershed area of Yangtze River, Yellow rivers. They are having a sloping ground in this catchment, and this ground is prone to erosion, thereby degrading the water quality as well as the catchment. So they wanted to mitigate the issue, that is for the farmers were required to set aside their activity on these lands. In exchange, farmers receive regular cash payments and grain ration. Since the farmers have set aside these lands, in exchange they are getting the uh, incentives in terms of cash at regular intervals. Also, incentives in kind, that means they are also getting grain rations. The program promotes forestry and other economic endeavors on the land rather than grain production in order to prevent sediment from washing into rivers and clogging dams and shipping channels. So the government has taken up the promotion of forestry and other economic activities on this land rather than the agriculture to produce the grains in order to prevent sediment from washing into rivers and clogging dams and shipping channels. So another incentive based instrument that can be thought of is water quality trading. Water quality trading is an incentive based approach for reducing or controlling water pollution. Under such a system, polluters are granted a permit to pollute, and these permits can be bought and sold among the polluters. So, under this incentive based scheme, polluters are granted a permit to pollute by paying some amount to the governments, and these permits can be bought and sold among the polluters. So, this can be exchangeable among the polluters. These permits are exchangeable among the polluters. The central idea is that trading puts a price on pollution. So the idea behind is that the trading puts a price on the pollution, encouraging cost savings, efficiency, and innovation. Water quality trading is an adjunct to regulation, not an alternative to it. So the water quality trading is an adjunct to the regulation, but it is not an alternative to the already existing regulations in this regard. In fact, its success depends on the presence of a strong regulatory body to enforce water quality standards. So, the success of this trading depends on the strong regulatory bodies which are needed to enforce the water quality standards and to monitor and enforce discharge limits. Also, there should be a continuous monitoring and enforcement regarding the pollution limits or the discharge limits are the standards which the polluters have to pollute the water body. To date, most water quality trading markets have been used to control pollution from nutrients that cause excessive algal growth and low dissolved oxygen levels in water bodies, a process referred to as eutrophication. So, at present, most of the water quality tradings are used to avoid the eutrophication, that is discharging nutrients into the water body, which leads to the algal growth and also reduced dissolved oxygen levels in the water bodies. Other water quality trading programs have been set up to control salinity, heavy metal, sediment and temperature or thermal pollution. One of the best examples of a successful water quality trading market is on Australia's Hunter River, where coal mines and other pollution sources are subject to discharge limits to protect water quality and drinking water sources in downstream cities. So one of the successful story of the water quality trading is in Australia's Hunter River, where coal mines and other pollution sources are subject to discharge limits. So the coal mines have been made to discharge the effluents to the water bodies with a certain discharge limits to protect the water quality and drinking water sources in the downstream cities. So under this system, limited discharge is allowed, but permitted discharges must coordinate their activities so that the total salt concentration in the river never goes above a specified limit. So under this system, the standards have been set for the discharging the pollutants to the water body. That means the salt concentration should be to a certain limit only. But there are many operators in the that particular watershed area or a basin. Then the polluters should coordinate themselves to see that the total concentration in the river never goes beyond a specific limit by their activity. Industries can buy and sell salt credits in real time via trading website run by the state governments. So there is a mechanism for the to buy and sell the salt credits in the real time, and it has been done through the websites in Australia. Several years after it began, the trading program remains popular among participants and functions smoothly, even though after several years after its beginning, the trading program is still popular and it runs very smoothly. Perhaps the biggest marker of the program's success is that even though new and potentially high polluting mines have been established, river water quality has met standards nearly 100% of the time. So the success is that even though there are many potentially high polluting mines have come up and established, the river quality has met the standards nearly to 100% because they are coordinating among themselves. The polluters are coordinating among themselves to limit to keep the required standards of their effluents. So this is a success story. Okay, thank you.